Welcome to Life Change Solutions, a podcast for hope, health, and happiness. I'm your host, Kendra Crompton, and today I have a very special guest with me. We actually met in our allergist office, of all places. Today I have Janet Brockway. She is the event coordinator for a very wonderful event that happens in Coral Springs, Florida. It's called Bethlehem Revisited. When I first moved here, it was one of the first things that I went to, and it was, I have to say, during the holiday seasons when everything is so rush, it was lovely to just go through, have a little peace and calm, and just go through and feel the spirit of that place and the volunteers. So I'm going to let Janet just talk a little bit about herself, how she got into this, and maybe a little bit about whatever you want to tell our audience, our listeners today, about yourself and how you got into this.
That sounds great, Kendra. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And I have to say that when my husband and I first moved to Coral Springs, it took us a little while to find the church that was just right for us and our family. And we settled on First Church of Coral Springs on Sample Road. And the first thing I found out when we started there is they were recruiting for a drama that they were going to do in December. And it was called Bethlehem Revisited. They'd only been doing it for a couple of years. And because I have a drama background, I was very excited to volunteer. And my children all volunteered. And it was a wonderful thing that we could do together as a family at Christmas time. Bethlehem started in 1993, and we wanted to do something a little different from just a regular live nativity. We wanted to be able to give people the flavor of the town of Bethlehem, the flavor of first century living. So the first year in 1993, before my time, they had 6 shops. They opened for 3 nights, and there was about 300 people, and then maybe 600 the next year. But it took off like you couldn't believe. And in 1995, when we started, they were growing and growing. And I remember saying to them, "What part would you like me to play?" They said, "Oh, well, you can open up a shop." I said, "Okay." Well, they have an open air market similar to a first century market. And since they only had the 6 shops, they were trying to add more and more and more shops.
So let me just stop and explain to our listeners about what this is you enter in as if you were really entering Bethlehem. Yes. And everyone is in part, like they do not deviate from their part.
They do not break character.
Right. It is like, Disney World, but it's on this Christmas season only, and it's only for 5 days. So you walk in, and it's as if you're walking into this city. And whether you are Christian or Jewish or whatever culture you are, or whatever background you have, you will get an experience of what it was like at that time period. Yes, to walk through. So it is not just for Christians, it's for everyone.
It's for everyone. It's a very peaceful experience. And what we have done is we've taken what we call a snapshot of one part of the Bible, a few verses in Luke chapter 2 of the New Testament, but it is I would say the day after Christ was born, the night after Christ was born, because when you first go and you're in the line, you see the wise men traveling on their way, but they're not there yet. You see the shepherds who are telling you about the angels that came to them the night before.
Oh, this is interesting.
Yes,
okay.
So they're very excited and saying, "You have to go see. We went and saw him. He's amazing." And so you continue on to the actual structure of the set that is the village of Bethlehem. And the first doors open, and the Roman soldiers are so mean and gruff, and there you're in the census room.
Yeah, so you're experiencing a little bit of history.
Yes, so you actually are
ancient history.
Right, you're asked to sign the census. And we have done a lot of research and tried to be as authentic as we can with a very low budget to present what it would be like in a first century place. So after you go through the census room and you go through where the rabbi is, you go into an open air market. And the open air market has 16 shops, and each shop is as if first century. So you'll see a blacksmith, and you'll see a carpenter, and they have leather, and fish and poultry and a fresh market with vegetables and a music shop where they sell the shafars.
Now that's how you got started, right?
Yes.
So you came in, you were like, hey, I can do music.
Yes.
And that adds so much to it. Because
Exactly.
I remember going to that because you can actually touch some of the instruments I remember.
Yes. Yeah. And actually, it was such a blessing for me because at the time I was teaching preschool at Temple Bethlehem in Coral Springs. And I absolutely loved it. And I learned so much. And they were so kind to me there. And I learned about the shofar and I learned about history of the Bible and the Torah. And it gave me what I needed to move into Bethlehem and be realistic as possible.
Wow, that's
and
awesome.
The most important thing that we try to do is to, first of all, stay in character, but also to be very respectful of the people that we're trying to portray.
Yes.
And as you walk around the corner, you see a potter's shop, and the bread shop is the big focal point because Bethlehem in Hebrew means house of bread.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the bread shop is the biggest shop in Bethlehem, and we literally show people, here's this wheat, and we take the kernels of wheat, and we put it in a first century grinder and grind it into flour, and we do the whole thing. And it's just a really cool experience. I have to say that as people come to Bethlehem, it's almost like, when you take a tea bag and you put it in the water and you just let it steep. We steep people in the first century.
Yeah.
So as they walk through the census room and they go from shop to shop in the market, and then they make their way around to the inn, and the innkeeper says, I'm sorry, there's no room. In fact, we had to turn a couple away last night, and she was great with child, and the only place we could give them was the stable out back.
Yeah, yeah.
And you make your way into the stable, and there's the infant, a real family with a real baby.
Oh, wow.
And you go in and you see that child. And because you've been in your first century for about 20 minutes walking through, you walk in and you see that baby and you see Jesus.
Yeah.
And it's just the most spiritual, loving thing that you can do, I think, at Christmas time. It meant so much to my family being a part of it. My children grew up in Bethlehem. They were nomads and shepherds and shop assistants and angels. And we all grew together as a family at Christmas time by focusing on what Christmas is really all about.
Well, and that was going to be my next question is, how has this affected you and your family? And you led right into that beautifully.
Oh, absolutely. I remember one year, my son, Joe, he was helping me the last night. So we'd already gone through Bethlehem, had a wonderful experience. It was the very last night. Everyone was gone. We were taking the instruments from my shop and putting them into the trunk of my car and locking the door. And Joe said to me, Mom, it feels like Christmas is all over and all that's left is Santa Claus.
Yeah, yeah. So he really learned the meaning of Christmas. So that kind of changed his idea from Santa to what Christmas for him really meant.
It's a perspective changer. It really is. And it's not just for the visitors, it's for the volunteers as well.
Yeah.
We have approximately 400 volunteers.
Wow, 400.
Yeah. And there's different levels of what they do. We have people that you'll never see in Bethlehem because they've been there for 3 months building it.
Oh, wow.
And they don't come nights of.
And none of these people get paid at all.
Oh, no.
They're all volunteers.
Absolutely, including me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And it's months. It's months of work.
It's months. And on the board, like myself and the people on the board, we start in January.
So it's a whole year process.
Yeah. We start recruiting volunteers in September. We start building the set in October.
Okay.
We start trainings in November. And then the first weekend of December, which is coming up, we have a cast and crew walkthrough. So they walk through the set and we show them all the nuances and, all the safety features and all the things behind the scenes. And then the next weekend, we open.
So let's go back. Tell me a little bit about how, you said you moved in and you volunteered for the
music shop.
The music shop. But then how did you become the event coordinator?
Well, as time went on and people come and go, it's a very transient area. And the person that was the drama coordinator was moving on, and they were looking for someone to take her place, and I volunteered for that. I had done quite a bit of drama in high school, and I was the drama coordinator for the church, because in the 90s they had lots of dramas in the churches and stuff. And so it was a natural progression for me. And after, I guess that was about 99.
Okay.
And then in 2014, so I'd been the drama coordinator for a long time. That's when what we call them, the mayors of Bethlehem, the event coordinators, had moved on.
Okay.
And the problem is that they found out in August that they were not going to be there.
Oh, wow.
And it was very scary, and they needed to find someone very quickly. And they're looking around, and they said, who has been here since almost the beginning? And who knows the most about stuff? And so they asked me and my husband if we would take charge. And I said, well, I am the drama coordinator, and I know pretty much everything there is to know about the drama, but I don't know how to build it. Yeah. I always said to the foreman of the set, you build it and I will staff it. And so a friend of ours that also went to the church, that also had helped build for many years, we asked him if he would step up and take charge of that, and he did. And his name is Jim, and he'll probably kill me for
No, shout out to Jim. Shout out to Jim.
He's amazing.
So I can see this has really affected you and changed your life, because you were before a preschool teacher, and you still are, correct? And to add this above and beyond.
Well, as any volunteer will tell you, volunteering is a joy that you have on top of your life. In with your life, you integrate it into your life, but you still have, your home time, your family time, your job. You have a lot of things, and then you add that in, and it can either be a joy or a hardship. And for us, it's always been a joy.
And I really love that you mentioned that, because I have a book called Life Change Solutions, and in that book, I talk about happiness and what brings people happiness. And one of the things that brings people happiness is volunteering and serving others.
Absolutely.
And I can just tell by looking at you and when you're describing this, how much joy this brings to you. And I love that you found something you're passionate about, because I love when people find that volunteer or that thing that they can serve that also niche, helps right. other people, but also brings them joy. I talked about in one of my podcasts recently, actually, I was on a podcast about how as we get into retirement, sometimes people feel like they've lost purpose.
Yes,
and so one of the things is to find these opportunities where you can serve or do something to give back
right.
that you feel really good about, but also is contributing to your community.
And the thing I love about Bethlehem Revisited is that we have all ages. We have newborns. We have toddlers, we have children, we have young adults, we have middle age, we have elderly. Sometimes the elderly are the first ones to come and volunteer, and they might not be out back in a costume, but they'll be in the sanctuary greeting people. Yeah. And you'd be surprised how many people, after they've walked through that, really need to go into the sanctuary and just say a prayer and maybe have someone come over and talk to them.
That is really, I didn't know about that part.
Oh, absolutely. We have everything from parking attendants. We have a concession so that we have, because people wait in line a long time. It's free. So people stand in line for quite a while to be able to get in.
Yeah.
And we have greeters, and we give away Bibles. We have the choir and the bell choir. They do music and different groups that come and sing. And there's just a party in the front of the campus, and then Bethlehem in the back.
And then by the end, they can sit and ponder and meditate of everything that they've just seen. And perhaps maybe it's changed their life in some way just walking through. Have you seen that with some of the visitors?
Absolutely. One time it was years ago, we had a lot of times churches will bring a bus of people. And we had a youth group come through. And they were walking through, and they were just looking around at everything. And they got to the second street, and one of the teenage girls suddenly just fell to her knees, sobbing. And we thought maybe she'd gotten hurt or something. And we went over to check on her, and she's crying, and she said, "It's really real. this really happened. I always thought it was just a story, but it was real people that lived and died, and this really happened to them. And she hadn't even gotten to the end. She hadn't seen the baby yet.
Wow.
But right there, she gave her life to Christ. And right there, she changed her whole perspective and her whole life because of Bethlehem. And that is why we do it.
Yes, yes.
You know, I don't know if you mind if I just say, one of the things we talk about when we are recruiting people is that there are over 32,000 missionaries from other countries that come to the United States every year. They come to the United States that is supposedly a Christian country, has 1 million churches, lots of opportunities for people to come closer to God. And yet these people from other countries, 32,000, come to the United States. Why do they think we need that?
Yeah.
I think because they see us and they see a lost society.
And it seems like that. I think that in most religions, a lot of people are saying, oh, it's just stories. It didn't really happen.
Right.
It didn't. And I really like to stress, whether you believe or not,
Right.
religion is such a important part of a community.
Yes. And you know, Bethlehem exists. This is history.
Right.
So whether you look at the baby and say, this is the Messiah of the world, or whether you say, wow, this is an amazing production. Years ago, they used to actually give credit in history classes for extra credit for kids to come through and see what it was like. And that was really fun. We had a lot of people from different cultures come through just to see what a first century village is like.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it is real. That did happen. Whether or not you believe in Christ as the Savior of the world, this did happen. And there was a baby that was born.
Right.
And I really love, though, this aspect that you've kind of expressed about you founded the church that was good for you.
Yes.
And I encourage that with pretty much all of my clients. Find a sense of community. And churches are one of the number one places, because most people that go to church, there's the two greatest commandments: love God and love each other.
Church, synagogue, mosque. That's pretty much
all
the same
love
through
God,
all of them. Right.
Love each other. And within that community, you're gonna have that love for each other and that concern for each other, and helping and supporting each other.
Yes.
And not only does your church do that, but it supports that community, the whole community.
Yes, absolutely. And
Coral
Bethlehem
Springs.
Revisited is not just a production of First Church. Bethlehem Revisited invites and incorporates other people from other churches. If they want to be a part of it, we invite them and we bring them in. We have people, lots of people. I did a training last night, and there were a lot of people that don't go to our church, that just had come through Bethlehem, had seen it, and they wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah. And I, for those who my listeners out there, having a sense of community also gives you a good emotional and mental and spiritual health.
Yes.
I talk a lot about the 5 areas of health. And if you want to have all areas, that can really be a good benefit, because you get that spiritual uplift, and it helps calm some of the anxiety and stresses by just having that sense of community. Right. So I love that you're doing this. I just, one of the things that I wanted to let our listeners know is where exactly this is.
Sure.
So I wrote it down. So it's on First Church in Coral Springs, and that is 8650 West Sample Road.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been there. It is a big thing, but it's only for 5 days.
Right.
So why do you only do it for 5 days? Why not through the whole Christmas season?
Well, like I said, 400 volunteers in December, the busiest time for most people. It's very difficult to get people to be able to take that much time off of work, right, or off of their kids' Christmas concerts, all these different things that they're doing. So also we have live animals, and we're going to have, this year, 24 live animals-ish. Depends on how many chicks are born. We have a cow, we have 2 horses, we have about 8 sheep, I think, and lambs, and then we have chickens and little baby chicks.
I didn't even think about having all those for that period of time.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
Now, some of them come and go every night,
Okay.
As the family that donates, and I mean literally also volunteers to care for the animals through the year, to bring them, we have a donkey too, and bring them to Bethlehem, and they take care of them all week long, and then they take them back home, and it's just amazing. But more than 5 days, it's really tough on the animals.
I would imagine. Well, it's tough on the people too during the holiday season, and to take that time to really focus on not the gifts. And this morning I was thinking about this podcast, and I've been so hurried for Thanksgiving. I'm traveling, and it's my sister's birthday. It was my birthday. It's my dad's birthday, and thinking about all the things I had to do. And I just thought, I just need to sit back and meditate and ponder and just slow down. And I think this gives you that time to just, okay, let's just breathe and go through something.
Absolutely.
That's not all the pomp and the commercialized, and something that is just brings you peace and calm. And it
brings you back to center of what the season's really all about. Yeah. As the event coordinator, part of my job is to realize that the 400 volunteers are each individuals with lives and issues and problems and anxieties, and to make sure that Bethlehem is a happy experience for them as well. Yeah. So there's not a lot of pressure. We train them and we ask them to work hard, but we also understand. And we have this extra cast member group called nomads. Mm-hmm. And the nomads, their entire job is to fill in if something happens and someone can't be there.
Oh, wow.
So you'll find a nomad going into a different shop if so-and-so is on the freeway trying to get here, in traffic. Or we've even had, my husband has been Joseph before as part of the Holy Family because Dad couldn't get there because he was stuck at work. And there's always thought that goes into, when you have volunteers, there's always thought that goes into, how can we make this a good experience for them as much as it is for the visitors that come through? We have about 2,000 visitors a night.
Wow, a night Wow.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
So that's about 10,000 a year. Friday night's a little less, Tuesday night's a little more, Sunday night's pretty big because all the church buses come on Sunday. But as word gets out, and as people drive by and they see the lines of people, then they're like, "Oh no, Bethlehem is coming. There's only a few days. We know it's only a few days." So they try to come, and we have we take the line is kind of like Disney. It moves fast, but it's very long.
Okay,
and when we first start, we take about 75 people at a time into the census room.
Okay.
And then as the city gets a little full, people might be taking a little too long or something, then we have it quite, 50 people. And if it gets really crowded inside, because we have to really be safe. And we also want to make sure that people get a good experience, that they're not just being cattled in. So we'll bring it down to 25 people. And then if it starts to get empty, we'll make it bigger. But most of the time, the line moves pretty quickly. And we also have people that their whole job is to keep people safe in the line and hand out stickers to the little kids and candy canes and try to keep people excited. We have little quiz cards that people can, with a QR code, and they can go on there and take a quiz, see what they know about the Bible or what they know about Bethlehem. We have signs posted along the way. This is how many screws we used to put this together, and this is how many hours it took to make all the costumes and things like that. So we try to keep people less frustrated. We'd like, and the thing that I said at the training last night, even if you're not wearing a costume, you're still representing God. Yeah. So you have to be kind in an unkind world.
And that's a really great point. I think with the pandemic, and you weren't able to have it for the last 2 years.
Right.
So I think this is going to be just a wonderful opening to have this back again and have people come. But it got so unkind during the pandemic and so much animosity. And I think, one of my theories is people wearing masks, and you can say and do a lot of things if people don't see your face. But when they see your face, you're going to be a little bit kinder.
You're held a little more accountable,
right?
I think, yeah. And this is the same with social media. People are, they say things on social media that they would never say if they were talking straight to you.
Right. So I think this is going to be a wonderful welcome for the season. And it's December 9th through the 13th, correct?
Yes.
So we want everyone, and I will put that in my notes for everyone.
Okay.
But I want to reiterate that this is in Coral Springs. It's called Bethlehem Revisited.
Right.
And before we end today, I was hoping you could share with us a little more about you and your journey and how if you think you're going to do this for the rest of your life,
gosh. One thing that we try to do is to stay humble, and we're always looking for someone to be the next us.
Okay.
We're all getting older, and we worry, especially in such a transient area, that our tribal knowledge of Bethlehem and all that goes into it is going to disappear. And we don't want any person to be an island where if they're not there, it can't happen.
Okay.
And currently there are about 5 of us that it wouldn't happen if it wasn't for us. And that's what we want to change. My husband and I have a wonderful 43-year marriage, and we have just worked together so well in Bethlehem. He's amazing. I always tell people that if they need a brain, he's the one to go to. If you need a mouth, I'm the one to go to because I'm a big talker, but he does the computer, he does the scheduling, and then the days off, he literally takes those days off of work, and we go over and we make sure that there's water in the well and everything is ready, and the electric and the sound and everything is working exactly as it should, which our volunteers have already put together for us. And he just goes and gets everything set up, and it's just a wonderful family experience, even though now our children are grown, but our grandchildren come to Bethlehem.
Well, and it sounds like it's something that you and your husband can do together. A lot of times, I counsel couples, and a lot of times when couples get older, they seem to separate. They don't have that,
because you used to have the kids in common, and now the kids have moved out.
And now you have this thing that still binds you together.
Yes.
And you work together on it. And I love that. I usually try to have my couples write down things that they think about that they're going to do in the future together. That's and excellent. Keep that in their mind throughout their whole marriage, because the kids will go, things will happen. But if you have, I call it, keep your eye on the pie,
right?
And for you guys, this helps keep your relationship, I think, closer together. So that's been always wonderful.
Wherever you volunteer, when you volunteer with your husband or wife, it makes a big difference, because you're taking the teamwork of your marriage into this project, and it just solidifies it and makes it more wonderful.
So glad you shared that with us, because I think there's a lot of couples who do kind of that ends up being stale, their relationship stale or stuck,
right? And
finding something. And they can come and help you guys if you need it, right? And this seems to be working for your marriage, 43 years. Yeah. So finding those things that you can work together. I'm so glad you shared that at the end of our podcast today, because I think that's so important as couples grow older, that they grow together and not apart.
Yes.
And this seems to help you to grow together.
Absolutely. We're best friends, and we've been best friends for 43 years, but we look forward in our future to always hanging out together, volunteering together, whether in Bethlehem or once we get too old for that, then we'll go on and do something else, but we'll do it together. Yeah,
I know in my church, older couples actually go on missions together.
Yes.
And they'll go, my parents did. They served in Arizona together, and my dad will to this day say that was the best time in our marriage.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Because you count on each other so much.
And my dad had a whole new respect for my mom when he saw her really teaching little children and teaching families. And he said she could reach people like I could never reach them.
That's awesome.
And actually working together, he could see that. And I think it's kind of the same thing. I'm sure he has so much more admiration and respect for you, seeing what you do. And I noticed when you were talking about him, you had that for him as well.
Absolutely. I also teach at the preschool there, and I'm the music teacher, and we have Christmas pageants for the 2-year-olds and the 3-year-olds and the 4-year-olds. And my husband plays the piano.
Oh.
So it's another fun thing that we do together. Yes.
Well, that gives me hope. And that's one of the things that's in my book is Hope, Health, and Happiness. It gives me hope that couples can find these things. Volunteers can come and they can work in
Yes.
Bethlehem Revisited. So if they wanted to, they should see you early, or maybe even
September,
that night.
probably.
Okay. And go to First Church and say, hey, I'm really interested in volunteering
Yes.
at this event. And
it's open to everybody. If you want to be a visitor, there's no admission. So just come on over and get in line.
there's no admission. You just show up.
No, that's part of our ministry.
Okay.
Not just as First Church, but just as Christians, to not charge people for the gospel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why we all volunteer, because we want people to be able to come and not have to pay any money.
Well, I can tell your faith has really, really something dear to your heart, that you glow. There's a sparkle in your eyes. And I love that. I love when people have such a faith in whether it's God or something they're passionate about. You can see that sparkle in their eyes. So thank you so much for sharing that with our listeners today and sharing it with me. It has been delightful to have you on my podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And I hope that I see you in Bethlehem.
Oh, you will.
Okay.
You will. I've been every year except for during the pandemic. So when I met you, I was like, oh, would you come and share on my podcast? So thank you again. And I'd like to tell our listeners, again, just reiterate, this is at First Church in Coral Springs.
Right.
It's on Sample Road.
8650
West Sample Road. It is free to the public.
Yes.
And I will put that in my notes as well. And do you have a contact information I can put in there as well?
Sure. You can call the church if you have any questions. It's 954-752-0333.
Okay.
Or you can email us at BethlehemRevisited25@gmail.com.
Oh, well, that's easy enough. Bethlehem
Pretty
Revisited.
easy.
I'll put that in there as well for our listeners. And I hope all of our listeners in the area of Coral Springs will come and visit you. And I want to thank you again. And
Absolutely.
Let everyone know that this has been a podcast of Life Change Solutions. And you can find me on my Life Change Solutions, or you can, I would love for you to leave a review. And I know it's a little tricky, but I leave notes on the podcast right below it. When you click on it, it'll tell you how to do that. But I can only give great podcasts when I hear what you all want. So, and you've been wonderful at leaving comments and questions. So please write a review and let me know what you thought of this podcast. And I look forward to hearing from you. And you can, like I said, contact me. Also, I'll have all of my information on the notes, but you can contact me at My Life Change Solutions. I also have a Facebook page with that same title, My Life Change Solutions. So I love to hear from you, and thank you again.
Thank you.